Well, having spent a year in Paris and having, discovered UNESCO and the Bull Soprano, and then the Rhinoceros opened the same year that I was living there, I realized that it was high time that somebody applied the same sort of delirium to female experience. And so I wanted to write a play about how women compete for men, because to my knowledge this had never really been explored in a theatrical way, perhaps on television, but not as theater. And so I imagined this evening of three, female roommates, desperate to find men, inviting two guys that they know, and one invites a friend that they don't know. And by the end of the evening, one of the women has somehow finagled one of the men to marry her. So the play was very much about females trapping men, and part of the trap involved the last course for dessert at this grand dinner party. The cook, who is a very large, fat woman, wheels out an enormous wedding cake that, in my stage directions, was supposed to be 9 feet tall, but life being such as it is, it was 6 feet tall, and covered with whipped cream and fake whipped cream so that it wouldn't rot every night. And I wanted the woman who's after this guy to literally take off all of her clothes and jump into the cake and have him lick the icing off of her, because this would certainly be an enticement to get him to marry her. So it was all in service of a rather, profound and upsetting reality of what women will do to get guys to, come to the altar with them. So it wasn't just me being wildly wanton, but there was a rationale behind it. And the play was first done at a theater called Act 4 in Provincetown, Massachusetts, with Sally Kirkland playing that role. And it was a huge success. And the local critics loved it, and people came up from New York. I got an agent. There was a huge buzz around it. And then we did it off Broadway in New York at a theater called the Mercury Theater on 13th Street, which no longer exists. And I don't remember, there were casting changes, and I don't remember exactly how they fell out, but we got Jill to play the part that Sally had played, and she didn't seem to mind taking off her clothes and jumping into the cake. And God knows, Richard Jordan didn't mind licking the frosting off of her. But I had been seeing these wonderfully mischievous plays in Paris, and I thought, when is somebody going to look at female experience through this same sort of lens? And I thought that I would be appreciated for this, and that people would, be grateful for me and say, well, thank God, finally a woman has, kicked off the traces and is letting her imagination fly. On the contrary, Clive Barnes said of the 10 worst plays he'd ever seen in his life, that The Nest went right at the top. And so we closed in a night. I must say the production did get a little out of hand, though, that we were sort of adding bananas to bananas to bananas to bananas, so that by the time we got to that scene, it was truly chaos. Not necessarily choreographed chaos, but just chaos, in and of itself.